Section 18 of The Story of the Trapper by Agnes Christina Laut. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Ted Leinhart. Chapter 18, Under the North Star, Where Fox and Ermine Run. 1. Of foxes, many and various, red, cross, silver, black, prairie, kit or swift, Arctic, blue, and gray. Wherever grouse and rabbit abound, there will foxes run, and there will the hunter set steel traps. But however beautiful a fox skin may be as a specimen, it has value as a fur only when it belongs to one of three varieties, Arctic, black, and silver. Other foxes, red, cross, prairie, swift, and gray, the trapper will take when they cross his path, and sell them in the gross at the fur post, as he used to barter buffalo hides. But the hunter who traps the fox for its own sake, and not as an uncalculated extra to the mink hunt or the beaver total, must go to the far north, to the land of winter night and midnight sun, to obtain the best fox skins. It matters not to the trapper that the little kit fox or swift at run among the hills between the Missouri and Saskatchewan is the most shapely of all the fox kind, with as finely pointed a nose as a Spitz dog, ears alert as a terrier's in the brush, more like a lady's gray feather boa than fur, curled round his dainty toes. Little Kit's fur is a grizzled gray shading to mottled fawn. The hairs are coarse, horsey, indistinctly marked, and the fur is of small value to the trader. So dainty little Swift, who looks as if nature made him for a pet dog instead of a fox, is slighted by the hunter, unless Kit persists in tempting a trap. Rufus, the red fellow, with his grizzled gray head and black ears and whitish throat and flaunting purplish tinges down his sides like a prince royal, may make a handsome mat, but as a fur he is of little worth. His cousin with the black forefeet, the prairie fox, who is the largest and strongest and scientifically finest of all his kind, has more value as a fur. The color of the prairie fox shades rather to pale ochre and yellow than the nondescript grizzled gray that is of so little value as a fur. Of the silver-gray fox, little need be said. He lives too far south, California and Texas and Mexico, to acquire either energy or gloss. He is the one indolent member of the fox tribe, and his fur lacks the sheen that only winter cold can give. The value of the cross fox depends on the markings that give him his name. If the bands, running diagonally over his shoulders in the shape of a cross, shade to grayish blue, he is a prize. If to reddish russet, he is only a curiosity. The Arctic and black and silver foxes have the pelts that at their worst equal the other rare furs, at their best exceed the value of all other furs by so much that the lucky trapper who takes a silver fox has made his fortune. These, then, are the foxes that the trapper seeks, and these are to be found only on the white wastes of the polar zone. That brings up the question, what is a silver fox? Strange as it may seem, neither scientist nor hunter can answer that question, nor will study of all the park specimens in the world tell a secret, for the simple reason that only an Arctic climate can produce a silver fox, and parks are not established in the Arctics yet. It is quite plain that the prairie fox is in a class by himself. The uniformity of his size, his strength, his habits, his appearance distinguish him from other foxes. It is quite plain that the little kit fox or swift is of a kind distinct from other foxes. His smallness, the shape of his bones, the cast of his face, the trick of sitting rather than lying, that wonderful big bushy soft tail of which a peacock might be vain, all differentiate him from other foxes. The same may be said of the Arctic fox with a pelt that is more like white wool than hairs of fur. He is much smaller than the red. His tail is bushier and larger than the swift, and like all Arctic creatures, he has the soles of his feet heavily furred. All this is plain and simple classification. But how about Mr. Blue Fox of the same size and habit as the white Arctic? Is he the Arctic fox in summer clothing? Yes, say some trappers, and they show their pelts of an Arctic fox taken in summer of a rusty white. But no, vow other trappers, that is impossible, for here are blue fox skins captured in the depths of midwinter with not a white hair among them. Look closely at the skins. The ears of one blue fox are long, perfect, unbitten by frost or foe. He was a young fellow, and he is blue. Here is another with ears almost worn to stubs by fights and many winters' frosts. He is an old fellow, and he too is blue. Well then, the blue fox may sometimes be the white Arctic fox in summer dress, but the blue fox who is blue all the year round, varying only in the shades of blue with the seasons, is certainly not the white Arctic fox. The same difficulty besets distinction of silver fox from black. The old scientists classified these as one and the same creature. Trappers know better. So do the later scientists, who almost agree with the unlearned trapper's verdict. There are as many species as there are foxes. Black fox is at its best in midwinter, deep, brilliantly glossy, soft as floss, and yet almost impenetrable, the very type of perfection of its kind. But with the coming of the tardy Arctic spring comes a change. The snows are barely melted in May, when the sheen leaves the fur. By June, the black hairs are streaked with gray, and the black fox is a gray fox. Is it at some period of the transition that the black fox becomes a silver fox, with the gray hairs as sheeny as the black, and each gray hair delicately tipped with black? That question, too, remains unanswered, for certainly the black fox trapped when in his gray summer coat is not the splendid silver fox of priceless value. Black fox turning to a dull gray of midsummer may not be silver fox, but what about gray fox turning to the beautiful glossy black of midwinter? Is that what makes silver fox? Is silver fox simply a fine specimen of black caught at the very period when he was blooming into his greatest beauty? The distinctive difference between gray fox and silver is that gray fox has gray hairs among hairs of other color, while silver fox has silver hair tipped with glossiest black on a foundation of downy gray black. Even greater confusion surrounds the origin of cross and red and gray. Trappers find all these different cubs in one burrow, but as the cubs grow, those pronounced cross turn out to be red, or the red becomes cross, and what they become at maturity, that they remain, varying only with the seasons. It takes many centuries to make one perfect rose. Is it the same with the silver fox? Is he a freak or a climax, or the regular product of yearly climatic changes caught in the nick of time by some lucky trapper? Ask the scientist that question, and he theorizes. Ask the trapper, and he tells you if he could only catch enough silver foxes to study that question, he would quit trapping. In all the maze of ignorance and speculation, there is one anchored fact. While animals turn a grizzled gray with age, the fine gray coats are not caused by age. Young animals of the rarest furs, fox and ermine, are born in an ashy color that turns to gray while they are still in their first nest. To say that silver fox is costly solely because it is rare is sheerest nonsense. It would be just as sensible to say that Labradorite, which is rare, should be as costly as diamonds. It is the intrinsic beauty of the fur, as of the diamonds, that constitutes its first value. The fact that the taking of a silver fox is always pure luck, that the luck comes seldom, that the trapper must have traveled countless leagues by snowshoe and dog train, over the white wastes of the north, that trappers in polar regions are exposed to more dangers and hardships than elsewhere, and that the fur must have been carried a long distance to market, add to the first high value of silver fox, till it is not surprising that little pelts, barely 2 feet long, have sold for prices ranging from $500 to $5,000. For the trapper, the way to the fortune of a silver fox is the same as the road to fortune for all other men, by the homely trail of everyday work. Cheers from the fort gates bid trappers setting out for far northern fields Godspeed. Long ago, there would have been a firing of cannon when the northern hunters left for their distant camping grounds. But the cannon of Churchill lie rusting today, and the hunters who go to the subarctics and the Arctics no longer set out from Churchill on the bay, but from one of the little inland Mackenzie River posts. If the fine powdery snowdrifts are glossed with the ice of unbroken sun glare, the runners strap iron crampets to their snowshoes, and with a great jingling of the dog bells, barking of the huskies, and yelling of the drivers, coast away for the leagueless levels of the desolate north. Frozen riverbeds are the only path followed, for the high cliffs, almost like ramparts on the lower Mackenzie, shut off the drifting east winds that heap barricades of snow in one place and at another sweep the ground so clear that the sleighs pull heavy as stone. Does a husky fag? A flourish of whips, and off the laggard scampers, keeping pace with the others in the traces, a pace that is set for 40 miles a day with only one feeding time. Nightfall, when the sleighs are piled as a windbreak and the frozen fish are doled out to the ravenous dogs. Gun signals herald the hunter's approach to a chance camp, and no matter how small and mean the teepee, the door is always open for whatever visitor, the meat pot set simmering for hungry travelers. When the snow crust cuts the dog's feet, buckskin shoes are tied on the huskies, and when an occasional dog fags entirely, he is turned adrift from the traces to die. Relentless as death is northern cold, and wherever these long midwinter journeys are made, gruesome traditions are current of hunter and husky. I remember hearing of one old husky that fell hopelessly lame during the north trip. Often the drivers are utter brutes to their dogs, speaking in curses which they say is the only language a husky can understand, emphasized with the blows of a club. Too often as well, the huskies are vicious curs ready to skulk or snap or bolt or fight, anything but work. But in this case the dog was an old reliable that kept the whole train in line, and the driver had such an affection for the veteran husky that when rheumatism crippled the dog's legs, the man had not the heart to shoot such a faithful servant. The dog was turned loose from the traces and hobbled lamely behind the scampering teams. At last he fell behind altogether, but at night limped into camp, whining his joy and asking dumbly for the usual fish. In the morning, when the other teams set out, the old husky was powerless to follow, but he could still whine and wag his tail. He did both with all his might, so that when the departing driver looked back over his shoulder, he saw a pair of eyes pleading, a head with raised alert ears, shoulders straining to lift legs that refused to follow, and a bushy tail thwacking the snow. "You ought to shoot him," advised one driver. "You do it. You're a dead sure aim," returned the man who had owned the dog. But the other drivers were already coasting over the white wastes. The owner looked at his sleighs as if wondering whether they would stand an additional burden. Then, probably reflecting that old age is not desirable for a suffering dog in a bitingly keen frost, he turned towards the husky with his hand in his belt. Thwack, thwack went the tail, as much to say, "Of course he wouldn't desert me after I've hauled his sleigh all my life. Thwack, thwack, I'd get up and jump all around him if I could. There isn't a doggone husky in all Polar land with half as good a master as I have." The man stopped, Instead of going to the dog, he ran back to his sleigh, loaded his arms full of frozen fish, and threw them down before the dog. Then he put one caribou skin under the old dog, spread another over him, and ran away with his train while the husky was still guzzling. The fish had been poisoned to be thrown out to the wolves that so often pursue northern dog trains. Once a party of hunters crossing the northern Rockies came on a dog train stark and stiff. Where was the master who had bidden them stand while he felt his way blindly through the white whirl of a blizzard for the lost path? In the middle of the last century, one of that famous family of fur traders, a Mackenzie, left Georgetown to go north to Red River in Canada. He never went back to Georgetown, and he never reached Red River. But his coat was found fluttering from a tree, a death signal to attract the first passerby, and the body of the lost trader was discovered not far off in the snow. Unless it is the year of the rabbit pest and the rabbit ravagers are bold with hunger, the pursuing wolves seldom give full chase. They skulk far to the rear of the dog trains, licking up the stains of the bleeding feet or hanging spectrally on the dim frosty horizon all night long. Hunger drives them on, but they seem to lack the courage to attack. I know of one case where the wolves followed the dog trains, bringing out a trader's family from the north down the riverbed for nearly 500 miles. What manhunter would follow so far? The farther north the fox hunter goes, the shorter grow the days, till at last the sun, which is rolled across the south in a wheel of fire, dwindles to a disk, the disk to a rim. Then no rim at all comes up, and it is midwinter night. Night, but not darkness. The white of endless, unbroken snow, the glint of icy particles filling the air, the starlight brilliant as diamond points, the aurora borealis in curtains and shafts and billows of tenuous, impalpable, rose-colored fire, all brighten the polar night so that the sun is unmissed. This is the region chiefly hunted by the Eskimo, with a few white men and Chippewayan half-breeds. The regular northern hunters do not go as far as the Arctics, but choose their hunting ground somewhere in the region of Little Sticks, meaning the land where timber growth is succeeded by dwarf scrubs. The hunting ground is chosen always from the signs written across the white page of the snow. If there are claw marks, bird signs of northern grouse or white ptarmigan or snow bunting, ermine will be plentiful. For the northern birds, with their clogged stockings of feet feathers, have a habit of floundering under the powdery snow, and up through that powdery snow darts the snaky neck of stoat, the white weasel hunter of birds. If there are the deep plunges of the white hare, lynx and fox and mink and marten and pecan will be plentiful, for the poor white hare feeds all the creatures of the northern wastes, man and beast. If there are little dainty tracks, oh, such dainty tracks that none but a high-stepping, clear-cut, clean-limbed little thoroughbred could make them, tracks of 4 toes and a thumb claw much shorter than the rest, with a padding of 5 basal foot bones behind the toes, tracks that show a fluff on the snow as of furred foot soles, tracks that go in clean, neat, clear, long leaps and bounds, the hunter knows that he has found the signs of the northern fox. Here, then, he will camp for the winter. Camping in the far north means something different from the hastily pitched tent of the prairie. The north wind blows biting, keen, unbroken in its sweep. The hunter must camp where that wind will not carry scent of his tent to the animal world. For his own sake, he must camp under shelter from that wind, behind a cairn of stones, below a cliff, in a ravine. Poles have been brought from the land of trees on the dog sleigh. These are put up, crisscrossed at top, and over them is laid not the canvas tent, but a tent of skins, caribou, wolf, moose, at a sharp enough angle to let the snow slide off. Then snow is banked deep, completely round the tent. For fire, The Eskimo depends on whale oil and animal grease. The white man or half-breed from the south hoards up chips and sticks, but mainly he depends on exercise and animal food for warmth. At night, he sleeps in a fur bag. In the morning, that bag is frozen stiff as boards by the moisture of his own breath. Need one ask why the rarest furs, which can only be produced by the coldest of climates, are so costly? Having found the tracks of the fox, the hunter sets out his traps baited with fish or rabbit or a bird head. If the snow be powdery enough, and the trapper keen in wild lore, he may even know what sort of a fox to expect. In the depths of midwinter, the white Arctic fox has a wool fur to his feet like a Brahma chicken. This leaves its mark in the fluffy snow. A ravenous fellow he always is, this white fox of the hungry north, bold from ignorance of man, but hard to distinguish from the snow because of his spotless coat. The blue fox, being slightly smaller than the full-grown Arctic, lopes along with shorter leaps by which the trapper may know the quarry, but the blue fox is just as hard to distinguish from the snow as his white brother. The gray frost haze is almost the same shade as his steel blue coat, and when spring comes, blue fox is the same color as the tawny moss growth. Color is blue fox's defense. Consequently, blue foxes show more signs of age than white: stubby ears frozen low, battle-worn teeth, dulled claws. The chances are that the trapper will see the black fox himself almost as soon as he sees his tracks, for the sheeny coat that is black fox's beauty betrays him above the snow. Bushy tail standing straight out, every black hair bristling erect with life, the white tail tip flaunting a defiance, head up, ears alert, 4 feet cleaving the air with the swift ease of some airy bird. On he comes, jump, 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 more of a leap than a lope, galloping like a wolf, altogether different from the skulking run of little foxes, openly exulting in his beauty and his strength and his speed. There is no mistaking black fox. If the trapper does not see the black fox scurrying over the snow, the telltale characteristics of the footprints are the length and strength of the leaps. Across these leaps the hunter leaves his traps. Does he hope for a silver fox? Does every prospector expect to find gold nuggets? In the heyday of fur company prosperity, not half a dozen true silver foxes would be sent out in a year. Today, I doubt if more than one good silver fox is sent out in half a dozen years. But good white fox and black and blue are prizes enough in themselves, netting as much to the trapper as mink or beaver or sable. 2. The white ermine. All that was said of the mystery of fox life applies equally to ermine. Why is the ermine of Wisconsin and Minnesota and Dakota a dirty little weasel noted for killing 40 chickens in a night, wearing a mahogany-colored coat with a sulfur strip down his throat, while the ermine of the Arctics is as white as snow, noted for his courage, wearing a spotless coat which kings envy, yes, and take from him? For a long time, the learned men who study animal life from museums held that the ermine's coat turned white from the same cause as human hair, from senility and debility and the depleting effect of an intensely trying climate. But the trappers told a different story. They told of baby ermine born in Arctic burrows in March, April, May, June, while the mother was still in white coat, babies born in an ashy coat, something like a mouse skin, that turned to fleecy white within 10 days. They told of ermine shedding his brown coat in autumn to display a fresh layer of iron-gray fur that turned sulfur white within a few days. They told of the youngest and smallest and strongest ermine with the softest and whitest coats. That disposed of the senility theory. All the trapper knows is that the whitest ermine is taken when the cold is most intense and most continuous, that just as the cold slackens, The ermine coat assumes the sulfur tinges, deepening to russet and brown, and that the whitest ermine, instead of showing senility, always displays the most active and courageous sort of deviltry. Summer or winter, the northern trapper is constantly surrounded by ermine and signs of ermine. There are the tiny claw tracks, almost like frost tracery across the snow. There is the rifled nest of a poor grouse, eggs sucked or chickens murdered, the nest fouled so that it emits the stench of a skunk, or the mother hen lying dead from a wound in her throat. There is the frightened rabbit loping across the fields in the wildest, wobbliest, most woebegone leaps, trying to shake something off that is clinging to his throat till over he tumbles, the prey of a hunter that is barely the size of rabbit's paw. There is the water rat flitting across the rocks in blind terror, regardless of the watching trapper, caring only to reach safety. Water, water. Behind comes the pursuer. This is no still hunt, but a straight open chase, a little creature about the length of a man's hand, with a tail almost as long, a body scarcely the thickness of 2 fingers, a mouth the size of a bird's beak, and claws as small as a sparrow's. It gallops in lithe bounds, with its long neck straight up, and its beady eyes fastened on the flying water rat. Splash, dive, into the water goes the rat. Splash, dive, into the water goes the ermine. There is a great stirring up of the muddy bottom. The water rat has tried to hide in the undertangle, and the ermine has not only dived in pursuit, but headed the water rat back from the safe retreat of his house. Up comes a black nose to the surface of the water. The rat is foolishly going to try a land race. Up comes a long neck, like a snake's, the head erect, the beady eyes on the fleeing water rat. Then with a splash, they race overland. The water rat makes for a hole among the rocks. Ermine sees, and with a spurt of speed is almost abreast, when the rat at bay turns with a snap at his pursuer. But quick as flash, the ermine has pirouetted into the air. The long, writhing neck strikes like a serpent's fangs, and the sharp foreteeth have pierced the brain of the rat. The victim dies without a cry, without a struggle, without a pain. That long neck was not given the ermine for nothing. Neither were those muscles massed on either side of his jaws like bulging cheeks. In winter, the ermine's murderous depredations are more apparent. Now the ermine, too, sets itself to reading the signs of the snow. Now the ermine becomes as keen a still hunter as the man. Sometimes a whirling snowfall catches a family of grouse out from furze cover. The trapper, too, is abroad in the snowstorm, for that is the time when he can set his traps undetected. The white whirl confuses the birds. They run here, there, everywhere, circling about, burying themselves in the snow till the storm passes over. The next day, when the hunter is doing the rounds of these traps, along comes an ermine. It does not see him. It is following a scent, head down, body close to ground, nose here, there, threading the maze which the crazy grouse had run. But stop, thinks the trapper, the snowfall covered the trail. Exactly. That is why the little ermine dives under snow just as it would under water, running along with serpentine wavings of the white powdery surface till up it comes again, where the wind has blown the snowfall clear. Along it runs, still intent, quartering back where it loses the scent. Along again till suddenly the head lifts, that motion of the snake before it strikes. The trapper looks. Tail feathers, head feathers, stupid blinking eyes poke through the fluffy snowdrift. And now the ermine no longer runs openly. There are too many victims this time. It may get all the foolish hidden grouse. So it dives, and if the man had not alarmed the stupid grouse, ermine would have darted up through the snow with a finishing stab for each bird. By still hunt and open hunt, by nose and eye, relentless as doom, it follows its victims to the death. Does the bird perch on a tree? Up goes the ermine, too, on the side away from the bird's head. Does the mouse thread 100 mazes and hide in a hole? The ermine threads every maze, marches into the hidden nest, and takes murderous possession. Does the rat hide under a rock? Under the rock goes the ermine. Should the trapper follow to see the outcome of the contest, the ermine will probably sit at the mouth of the rat hole, blinking its beady eyes at him. If he attacks, down it bolts out of reach. If he retires, out it comes, looking at this strange, big, helpless creature with bold contempt. The keen scent, the keen eyes, the keen ears warn it of an enemy's approach. Summer and winter, its changing coat conceals it. The furs where it runs protects it from fox and lynx and wolverine. Its size admits it to the tiniest of hiding places. All that the ermine can do to hunt down a victim, it can do to hide from an enemy. These qualities make it almost invincible to other beasts of the chase. 2 joints in the armor of its defense has the little ermine. Its black tail tip, moving across snow, betrays it to enemies in winter. The very intentness on prey, its excess of self-confidence, leads it into danger. For instance, little ermine is royally contemptuous of man's tracks. If the man does not molest it, it will follow a scent and quarter and circle under his feet, so the man has no difficulty in taking the little beast whose fur is second only to that of the silver fox. So bold are the little creatures that the man may discover their burrows under brush, in rock, in sand holes, and take the whole litter before the game mother will attempt to escape. Indeed, the plucky little ermine will follow the captor of her brood. Steel rat traps, tiny deadfalls, frosted bits of iron smeared with grease to tempt the ermine's tongue, which the frost will hold like a vice till the trapper comes, and most common of all, twine snares, such as entrap the rabbit, are the means by which the ermine comes to his appointed end at the hands of men. The quality of the pelt shows as wide variety as the skin of the fox, and for as mysterious reasons. Why an ermine a year old should have a coat like sulphur, and another of the same age a coat like swan's down, neither trapper nor scientist has yet discovered. The price of the perfect ermine pelt is higher than any other of the rare furs taken in North America, except silver fox, but it no longer commands the fabulous prices that were certainly paid for specimen ermine skins in the days of the Georges in England and the later Louis in France. How were those fabulously costly skins prepared? Old trappers say no perfectly downy pelt is ever taken from an ermine, that the downy effect is produced by a trick of the trade, scraping the flesh side so deftly that all the coarse hairs will fall out, leaving only the soft underfur. End of section 18.